Web forms are still commonly used, especially in underground markets. But what do the log files look like from an analysis point of view? If there was an attack, what would the logs generate? Would there even be any logs generated? And those are all valid questions. In today's video, I'll be going over another Sherlock lab from HackTheBox called Bumblebee. And we'll get to examine what logs exist behind the scenes, and hopefully, by following along, you'll get to learn something new. Let's get started. I'll be using a Windows virtual machine with WSL installed, which is Windows subsystem for Linux. This will allow me to run Linux commands on my Windows machine, and if you want to follow along, either install WSL or use a Linux-based operating system such as Ubuntu. The first thing you want to do is head over to HackTheBox and create an account if you haven't done so already. And then you want to head over to HackTheBox Labs. Once you sign in, you want to select the Sherlock's tab on the left. And the one that we're interested in is called Bumblebee. And you can find that by searching it, or you can click on Retired, and scrolling down, we have Bumblebee. Let's click on that. And going over the scenario, an external contractor has accessed the internal form here at Forella via the guest Wi-Fi. And they appear to have stolen credentials for the administrative user. We have attached some logs from the form and a full database dump in SQLite 3 format to help you in your investigation. Now, since we're dealing with a SQLite 3 format file, before starting the investigation, you'll want to head over to SQLiteBrowser.org and download a tool called DB Browser for SQLite. You'll want to select Downloads or Mac OS or even Linux, whichever operating system you're using. For me, I'm using Windows, so I'll download the standard installer for 64-bit. And once you have that installed, it will be located under the C drive, Program Files, DB Browser for SQLite. And this is the one that we want, DB Browser for SQLite.exe. So I'll right click this and I'll just send this over to the desktop just for easy access. Now it's on my desktop. Perfect. So back to HackTheBox, we'll want to download the bumblebee.zip file, and we'll want to copy the password by clicking on the key icon and use the password of HackTheBlue to extract the file from the zip file. So I'll right click the Bumblebee, click on 7-zip, extract to Bumblebee, and I'll paste in the password. Again, it is HackTheBlue, all in lowercase. Let's open up our directory, and we have a file called incident.tgz file. Again, what I can do is right click 7-zip and extract it. Now we have an incident directory. I'll go into that. There's a tar file. We'll go ahead and extract that again. And finally, we have our two files, which is access.log and the PHP file. So I'll go ahead and open up a Linux shell, and I'll just type in ls real quick. And yeah, we do have our two log files. Now, before we begin diving into these logs, the first thing I want to do is actually Google what exactly is PHPBB, because we see that right here. Over on Google, I'll type in PHPBB, and it says PHP is an internet form package written in the PHP scripting language. The name PHPBB is an abbreviation of PHP Bulletin Board. Okay, that's good to know. Let's start with the access.log file, which will contain server logs. And we can use the cat command to read the file. So let's use that and point it over to our access.log. And okay, we see a lot of information. Now, when analyzing web-specific traffic, there are usually two request methods that are important to look for. And those are the GET request and POST request. So the GET and POST. GET request is when you're retrieving something from the server, and POST request is when you're uploading something to the server. This can be inputting credentials, files, and or pictures, to name a few. In any web investigation, I love to start with POST request because I am interested in what the user had uploaded to the server. And to do that, we can begin searching for those by using the command grep. So let me go ahead and clear out the screen to make it a little more cleaner. And I'll type in grep POST, all capital, because grep is case sensitive, and I'll point it over to the access.log file. And here we can see all of the POST requests. I do notice an IP address of 10.10.0.78. This is the source IP of where this activity was generated from. I also see within the URI field of a /adm. So this might be interesting because this is usually short for admin. And over to the right, I know it's a little bit hard to see, we do see an HTTP 10.10.0.27, and it includes the full domain along with the user agent, which is this right here. But let's do this one step at a time. Firstly, I'll use the cut command to select the first column, which is the source IP, and I'll delimit this with a space. So let's clear out the screen. I'll use the up arrow to rerun the command, but I'll type in a pipe, type in cut -d, single quote, space, single quote, -f, and 1. Before I hit enter, the -d flag is used for the delimiter and the -f flag is used to select the field. And we have a list of IP addresses. Next, we'll want to sort this out and deduplicate any of the fields. And I can use a command called sort unique-c and then sort-nr. And we're left with 2 IP addresses. So the first one has 27 hits from the IP of 10.10.0.78, and the second one has 11 hits of 10.255.254.2. We can go ahead and save out this file by adding in an arrow sign. So I'll rerun the command and include a right arrow, and I'll name this as post_request_IPs.txt. Type in ls, and we have our new file listed right here. So now I can go ahead and reference this anytime I want, just like so. Beautiful. Now let's select the URI field. I'll type in grep post access.log, hit enter, and right now we are interested in this field right here. So this right here is the URI field. So using the same command, which is the cut -d with a space as a delimiter and -f to select the field, we can take a look at where this URI field is located. So the first one we know is source IP, which is listed in field 1. This dash will be field 2. This dash will be field 3. The date and time is 4. The time zone is 5. The post is 6. And finally, we have the URI as 7. Because again, we are delimiting using a space. So let's type in field 7, hit enter, and look at that. Now this is all of the URIs. Now we can include the IP address using field 1 by adding a comma in front of the field 7. So for example, I'll type in 1, 7. This will say select field 1 and field 7. And now we have the IP address along with the URI field. This is starting to look a lot cleaner. But what I'll do is also include the date and time as well. That way we can follow the chain of events. And I believe the time was on field 4. So I'll just add a comma. The first post request happened from the IP address of 10.10.0.78 on April 25th, 2023, 12:07:47. Now we don't know exactly what time zone this is because there's no time zone. But if we take a look and remove the cut command and just leave the grep command, we actually see a time zone here. This is +100. This means it is 1 hour after UTC. So if you want UTC, you'll simply have to minus 1 hour from the time. For example, this particular event will be 10:53:25 UTC. So looking at our events that include the source IP, the date and time, and the URI, we can see the first event happened at 12:07:47, but if we wanted UTC time, we'll say 11:07:47. Do keep that in mind because time zones are extremely important. So I'll save this out to a file called post_activities.txt. That way we can reference this if we need to. Now looking at the first event, we do see a UCP.php mode register. This could indicate an account being registered, but to make sure, we can go ahead and copy the UCP.php mode register, go on Google, and I'll just paste that in here. Looking at the first link, we do see our PHP community UCP.php mode register. So this is the page that this particular IP address had accessed. This is good to know because now we can say that this IP address on 11:07:47 registered for an account. And then we do see a mode equals login, which means that the user logged in about 40 seconds later. There's another IP address of 10.255.254.2 that logged in on 11:09:02 UTC time. And this is likely an administrator account based on the URI. We see /admin/index.php. Now again, similar to what we did, we can Google admin And it says how to log into admin page. And there's admin control panel, contact admin, admin area URL. We can safely say that this user on the IP address of 10.255.254.2 is an administrator account. Now the question becomes, should this IP address be expected to log in as an administrator on this form? And taking a look at the bottom, we see similar events that we saw in the beginning. And on 12.15.15, we see another register event from the IP address of 10.10.0.78. And about 2 minutes later, we see a post that was made from that IP address. And on the next day, which is the 26th of April on 2023, we see the IP address that ends in 78 log into what appears to be an administrator account based on the URI. And again, the same question becomes, should this IP address be logging in as an administrator account? Looking at the last two events, there is a database called backup, and the action is download. Now, the first activity of the download happened on 10:54:22 on April 26, 2023 on UTC time. This was about a couple minutes after the initial login. Since these are post requests that I'm looking at, if you recall in the beginning, if somebody downloads something from the server, you'll see a GET request. So let's go ahead and search for all of the GET requests in this log file. I'll use the same cut command with grep, but I'll replace the post with GET. Now we have our source IP, the date and time, and the URI. Looking at the logs, we know the action of download was initiated at 10:54:22 UTC time on April 26. So let's head over to that. 10:54:22. 10:54:22. So this is the event after that. And if we follow the chain of events, we do see this IP address navigating to the store directory. And likely these items were just being loaded on screen. We do see a SQL.gz file, and it's from the store directory called backup, and what appears to be an epoch time format, underscore, and some random characters. This happened on 11:01:38 UTC. What we can also do is take a look at the bytes for the file by adding in the field 10. The cool thing about web server logs or network logs in general is that there is often a field for bytes, which can help us with understanding downloads and uploads. So I'll type in comma with the field of 10. And here we see the bytes. So taking a look at our backup, we have 34,707 bytes, which is roughly around 34 kilobytes. And that is a pretty small database. So let's go ahead and save out this output. I'll save it as get_request.txt, and I'll clear out the screen. The next thing we want to do is zone in on user agents, because user agents can be a quick win to help us identify suspicious activity. First and foremost, I'll go ahead and cat out the access.log. We do see the user agent at the end of the log file, and the goal here is to look for a delimiter that we can use. And if we take a look at the user agent, we see a double quote that is surrounding it. So the double quote seems to be a pretty good candidate to use. So let's delimit using that. Clear out the screen, type in cat access.log. I'll cut this with a delimiter of double quotes, and let's type in -f1. So we have our IP address and the date. What about 2? We have our request and the URI. 3, these are the status codes and the bytes. What about 4? 4 is the domain, so that is not it. 5 is blank. 6, and 6 appears to be the 1. Now what we can do is do our sort and deduplicate, just like so. Hit enter, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 user agents. The first one appears to be some kind of Macintosh user agent. The next 2 are Windows, and the last one is a Debian internal dummy connection. So what I'll do is I'll save this out as useragents.txt. I think we have grabbed enough information, at least for now, for this particular access.log file. The next thing we want to take a look at is the SQL log. So over to my desktop, I'll double click the DB browser SQL application, open database, and let's click on our Bumblebee and select the php bb.sqlite3 file. Once we load in the file, we can then head over to Browse Data, which is at the top, And then we can click on the drop-down menu to see what available tables exist. So currently we have ACL underscore groups. There's options, roles. Ooh, users. What about users? So there's nothing interesting here. There's a ban list, codes, bookmarks, bots, config. Config might be interesting. And taking a look here, we see attachment quota. So this is in bytes. We have the board contact. It is admin@forella.co.uk. The email signature, thanks the management. When the board started, and this is an epoch time format. The board time zone in UTC. We have an LDAP base, Forella, and we have an LDAP password of password 1. So that is nice to see in here. We have our LDAP server of 10.10.0.11. The activity limit is 5,000. We have the server name, 10.10.0.76, and the site description of Forella internal form. And that seems to be about it. Now that password 1 is quite interesting, so let's put that into our notes. I also see a newest underscore username of apool1. Well, looking at the config, we did find some pretty great information. What else is there? If we scroll down, do we have users? Yes, we do. Users. We have anonymous, admin. We have a user IP column. So this has the IP address of our 10.255.254.2 address, which is the admin. Does it have the last logon date? I guess last mark could be it. Oh no, last visit. So this is the last logon date. So what we can do is copy this. Remember, this is an epoch time format, and we can use what is called a time converter. I should have specified epoch. There you go. And then we'll paste this in. Click on timestamp to human date. And we do see Wednesday, April 12, 2023, 11:25:59 UTC. Now, our events began around April 25th. So we aren't really interested in April 12th, at least not yet. Going back over to our database, let's take a look at the other users. If I scroll down, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 users here that have a last visit date. Scrolling over, we have the 10.255 address. This is for PHP admin. There's also a pool. Ooh, here we go. So 10.10.0.78 registered a user of apool and apool1. Now, if we look at the reg date, which is the register date, we can take a look at the first one. Let's copy this, head over to our time format. And here we go. Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, 11:08:19 a.m. UTC time. This is within our time frame, so this is an activity of interest. Go back to the database. What about the second one here? Paste that in, and this one happened on 12:15:41. Again, remember, this is UTC time. Now, if we scroll over, we have a user email as well, which is apool@contractor.net. If we recall the scenario, it did mention something about an external contractor. So this means that this apool is likely the contractor of interest. And we did find an activity related to a post coming from this IP address. So let's click on the table and see if there's any post tables. Scroll up, maybe topics. There is a hello everyone topic. We do see the poster as the contractor, but that's about it, it seems. Okay, posted. That is nothing. Scrolling up, there's actually a table called post. So let's click on that. And we have the post IP, which is 10.10.0.78. This is coming from a contractor. The post ID is 9. That's interesting. It went from 1, 2, all the way to 9. What happened to the rest? We got our post subject of hello everyone that we saw earlier. And looking at the post underscore text, we actually have the body of the post. Let's go ahead and copy that. And rather than manually looking for some interesting information, what I can use is Cyberchef. So I'll head over to Cyberchef and let's paste in the body here. Looking at the output, it appears to be a bunch of HTML data. And using Cyberchef, we can actually extract any potential IP addresses or even URLs. So for example, I can type in IP and it has an extract IP address. So let's go ahead and put that over to recipe. And there's an IP of 10.10.0.78, which is our contractor IP. What happens if we type in URL and extract that? Let's go ahead and remove our IP address. And here's all the URLs that exist. I do notice this suspicious one, which is HTTP towards the contractor IP address with an update.php file. Let's go ahead and copy this. And what I'll do is hold Control F and we'll do a find. I'll find the update.php and it's right here. So above it, we see your session token has timed out. In order to proceed, you must log in again. And the form action is this, with a method of post, login data, focus, username, and likely your password as well. So that's pretty sneaky. So when somebody enters in their username and password and hits submit, the information then likely gets sent over to this PHP file, and then the contractor will receive that credential. I think we have enough data to start answering some of the questions. But before I jump in, if you aren't aware, I have an upcoming SOC course that is expected to be released on June 10th if there are no issues. This course will contain over 30 plus hands-on labs and 5 exclusive SOC projects. If you or someone you know is interested in particularly the security operations domain, this course is designed to help students learn how to ask better questions and investigate network, endpoint, malware, identity, and cloud-related telemetry. Once you purchase it, it is yours for life and updates are free. The price is going to be $4.99 plus tax USD, and I provided all of the links in the description. Going over to our questions here, the first one is, what was the username of the external contractor? We know this as a pool 1. What IP did the contractor use to create their account? This was 10.10.0.78. What is the post ID of the malicious post that the contractor made? We head over to our database. If we scroll to the left, we have our post ID of 9. So let's type in 9. What is the full URI that the credential stealer sends its data to? Now we found that via CyberChef. Copy that. And let's paste that in here. Awesome. When did the contractor log into the form as the administrator? Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, if we go over to our logs and type in ls, when you log in, we make a post request. So let's go and cat out our post underscore request. And nope, those were the IP addresses. Post activities, that's the one. Post activities. And we're interested in the 10.10.0.78 address. And we do see the admin/index, but this is for the IP of 10.255. Looking at the other events here. So on April 26, 2023 at 10:53 UTC, we see our contractor IP address with an admin URI. So this means that this time is when the user logged in as an administrator. Now again, they are looking for UTC time. So it will be April 26, 04, 2023. And here it says 11:53:12. We minus 1 hour. So that is 10:53:12. Wrong answer. Oh, makes sense because there's no 36. So let's type in 26 and there you go. In the form, there are plain text credentials for the LDAP connection. What is the password? Ooh, let's head back over to our config and we found this under LDAP password. So password 1, type that in, password 1. And I can't spell today, so let's do that. What is the user agent of the administrator user? What is the user agent of the... Okay, so if I type in ls, we do have a user agent. Now there are 4 user agents, but we could likely exclude the last one, which is the internal dummy connection. And looking at the question, it is saying user agent of the administrator user. So not particularly with the contractor user. So let's go ahead and cat out the access.log. And what I'll use is grep-v to exclude. And let's exclude our contractor's IP address. And now we have our IP of 10.255.254.2. I mean, I could have just grep for this IP, but I guess it's good to show you different options here. And let's take a look at the user agent. It is Mozilla 5.0 Macintosh. Let's try this user agent here. Paste that in and we'll hit submit. Awesome. So that is correct. Now, if you're questioning, how did I get here? Well, if you recall from our post request, so I'll type in post underscore activities. If you take a look at the beginning, there is a /admin. and it's coming from this IP address of 10.255.254.2. And that is why we were interested in that IP. What time did the contractor add themselves to the admin group? When you're adding something, you're sending data to the server, which means you'll see a post request. Lucky for us, we're already looking at post_activities. This means we're interested in the contractor's IP address, and adding themselves to an administrator group likely requires admin access. So we can look at the /admin URI, and we do see an ACP_users, but we also see an ACP_groups, and there's also manage. So this is likely the time when the external contractor had added themselves to an admin group. So I'll go ahead and type that in. The 26th, April 2023. Again, UTC time, so you must -1. So it is 10:53:51. 10:53:51. Nice. What time did the contractor download the database backup? When you download something from the server, you'll see a GET request. And this is why it's good to always output your findings to a file, because we already have our GET request. So I'll just cat out the GET request, and looking at the backup, this one right here, this occurred on 11/01/38, 26/04, 2023, 11/01/38. And finally, the last question here. What was the size in bytes of the database backup as stated by access.log? Back into our logs here, we see the bytes as 34,707. Let's go ahead and type that in. 34,707. Click on submit. Perfect. We've just completed Bumblebee. That was a pretty fun lab. And if you stay till the end, hopefully by following along, you are becoming a lot more confident in your Linux skills, specifically within the CLI. It really is all about repetitions. The more you do, the better you become. And that is it for the video, and thank you for watching. If you found this informative, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribe if you want to. Remember to stay curious and do things differently.